one in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Yes, my yoke is easy, and my burden light. The Gospel of the Lord. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce our guest speaker, Gareth Phelan, who's been preaching since 7 o'clock this morning. Gerard is the Suicide Resource Officer with the HSE in this part of the country.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to everybody here today. As I said, my name is Gareth Phelan, and I'm the Suicide Resource Officer with the Health Promotion Department of the HSE. And I cover the areas of mental health promotion and suicide prevention, suicide awareness. First of all, I'd like to apologise for the speed at which I'm going to talk. I'm from Wicklow, and in Wicklow we have to talk fast to get out of trouble. So unfortunately, I'm reluctant off, and I haven't lost the old habits of talking fast. So if I am going too fast, I apologise. I'll try to keep it a little bit slower, and I hope people can understand me. So I suppose a little bit about my role as a resource officer for suicide prevention. It's my job to have knowledge of all the resources that are out there to help a person who may find themselves having thoughts of suicide. And it's also my role to be able to support organisations both within the HSE and outside the HSE, the voluntary community organisations, in the work that they're doing to try to prevent suicide and offer support to people who find themselves having thoughts of suicide. And my purpose here just tonight is to talk to you about suicide and try to raise some awareness around suicide, and also try to raise awareness that there is help for people who find themselves feeling that suicide may be an option for them, and also help for people who may be bereaved by suicide. But to start off, I'd like to heighten awareness that at any given time there are a number of people in our communities who may find themselves entertaining thoughts of suicide. And there are a large number. And unfortunately that number is increasing, and part of that can be directly related to the economic downturn, because people find themselves in places where they're experiencing extreme loss. And loss can be a number of different things. It can be loss of a loved one, but can also be loss of finances, loss of security, and loss of a home. And these are reasons for suicide for quite a few people. And I suppose it's important that we recognise that. And important that we recognise that people who are experiencing loss, that they may need our help and they may need our support. And I suppose it's our business as friends and family members and members of the community to be able to try our best to help support those who are close to us. Studies have told us that at any one time, 1 in 20 people, or 5% of our community, is thinking about suicide. That's a large number of people thinking about suicide, and I'm sure you all agree with me on that. And those figures are starting to increase. Suicide is the biggest killer of young people in this country at the moment, and more people die by suicide in this country every year than die in road traffic accidents. So we all need to come together as a community and try to do something to try to prevent deaths by suicide. The potential for having thoughts of suicide is part of being human, though. It's part of life. However, having thoughts of suicide and ending your life doesn't necessarily mean that the person wants to die. What it says rather is that the person may have more emotional pain than they're able to cope with at that present time. Emotional pain can come from a number of different things. It can be a result of depression. It can be, as I said, it can be loss of finances, loss of security, loss of a home. It can be isolation. People live in rural isolation. It can be loneliness. It can be any number of things, and anything can be a reason for suicide for anyone. Emotional pain is also very individual for people. What might be massive for one person might be small for another person, and that's something that we need to understand as a community. Just because we don't see something as being a big issue, it can be a very big issue for some people, and we need to understand that if we want to be able to offer help and support those around us. It can also become very intense as time goes by, especially if the person withdraws themselves from family and friends and people that they will get support from. And the unfortunate thing around emotional health and suicide is people do tend to withdraw themselves from family and friends and people who they can get that emotional support from. And sometimes we don't see that the person needs that emotional help and support because they have withdrawn themselves from us. However, having thoughts of suicide and taking the action required to to end our lives are two very different things. And similarly, just as having thoughts of suicide is a human emotion, the will to live is also a human emotion. And that's something that we need to hold on to, especially when we're trying to encourage somebody to choose life over death. Suicide thoughts, they don't have to become a reality now. There's no urgency, there's no deadline, and there's no limit. And for anybody who maybe having thoughts of suicide, now's the time to tell ourselves, wait, take a bit of time, put a bit of distance between our thoughts and our actions. And in this time, even though the emotional pain is still quite strong, and it can be unbearable, we can give ourselves a chance to get some relief from that pain. I'm not saying it will be easy, but it is a sign of strength when we can take the time to overcome the struggle with our thoughts of suicide and reach out for help and support. People who are having thoughts of suicide, they want help and they want support. And I suppose one key message that I'd like to get across tonight is people who are having thoughts of suicide, they also want to talk to you, to me, to friends, to family, about what has happened in their life to bring them to a place where they're maybe thinking about suicide. They want to be given the opportunity to explain it. But what keeps them from doing that? The fear of being judged, the fear of being labelled, and the fear of being stigmatised. That's what will prevent a lot of people from coming out and talking to us honestly and openly about their thoughts of suicide. We also have those fears. What stops us from asking somebody about suicide? We have fears of offending a person, of a person getting angry with us. We have fears of opening up a can of worms that we don't know what to do with. And that prevents us from asking somebody if they're having thoughts of suicide. What a person who's having thoughts of suicide needs more than anything else is an ear to listen to them and a shoulder to cry on. If you can offer that support to a person, that's the first